Here comes my favorite topic of the year. Well, not really, but you gotta do what you gotta do, as I know that most wine is still sold in supermarkets and discounters like Aldi. So I went to a random Aldi store near my home and I bought those 9 bottles of wine, even though, those are not considered bottles, and I spent less than $40 on them. So let's find out whether Aldi has some nice wines to offer. The discount chain Aldi is originally from Germany, but they are now everywhere all around the world, and they are one of the biggest wine retailers there is. They sell a lot of wine, but most of it is really cheap stuff, even though they have invested over the last few decades into quality and improving their assortment. In the past, they added some really high-profile wines to their offering in order to make sure that people understand that Aldi can also do quality. But when I was there very recently, I didn't really see a lot of that. I thought the selection was actually a little bit boring. I don't know whether that's a general trend right now, but it didn't feel like there's as much interesting wines on offer right now. But I still found bottles that I wanted to taste and kind of see whether there's anything good in that lineup. So let's start off with this one. This is a Crémant de Bordeaux Rosé made by Marquis de Beaucel. It's a brut wine and it's made following the méthode traditionnelle. So this is actually fermented in bottle. So the second fermentation took place in bottle, which is kind of something that you would do for high quality sparkling wines. This, however, was only retailing for €6.99. In Germany, the value-added tax is at 19% for wine, and there's also a sparkling wine tax for a bottle like this. It would be €1.02. So after taxes, this is actually €4.85. So there's not a lot of money left for the winemaker to make a good profit and Aldi to make a good profit on a bottle like this. The margins are really tight here, and oftentimes the quality is kind of the first thing that goes out of the window, but maybe this is an exception. So this is actually quite a nice color. It's pale pink. So yeah, looks like a sparkling rosé. Crémant de Bordeaux is the sparkling wine coming out of Bordeaux. It's probably not as well known as Crémant de Loire, for example, but it can be quite interesting. It always has to be made following the traditional method. So you have a base wine and then you re-ferment that base wine in bottle, and you then get those yeasty, brioche flavors in the wine. The rosé version is made using Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and Carmenère, depending on whatever you want to choose. And this wine actually only has cuvée on the back label, so you don't really know what's in there. So let's give this a taste, and well, yeah. The nose is actually quite nice. The nose is actually quite fruit driven and fresh. It smells of strawberries and cherries. There's not a lot of leasiness coming through. So those yeasty notes that you get when you leave the wine in contact with the yeast cells for a long time. They probably didn't do this because this is an entry-level product. So you want to kind of get it out of the winery as quickly as possible. Otherwise it just costs you money. But this is still a nice nose. I quite like the flavor of it, at least. Let's taste it now. On the palate, this is actually refreshing, fruity. I would say the sweetness level, this is labeled brut, but it's probably at the higher end of the scale for what is allowed for a brut wine. But it still tastes juicy, fresh, lively. This is good. Yeah, not a super serious wine, but this, in summer, when you're out and about, out of a plastic cup, paper cup, whatever, this is actually a nice little rosé. So I'm going to rate this 82 points. This is good. Good. I said good a lot of times now, but yeah, this is good. So next we have the 2023 Rheingau Riesling Dry from Leitz. Aldi started collaborating with different high-end wineries a few decades ago, and this model seems to have worked out quite well. So Aldi basically gets a famous name on board. This winery then bottles a wine especially for them. Usually they don't source the fruit for this wine from their own vineyards, but buy in grapes. I don't know whether that was the case here, but that's kind of how it usually works, because Aldi just sells too many bottles at the same time for most of those higher quality wineries to be able to supply that from their own production. The winery obviously gets a big paycheck because they are able to sell a lot of wine at once, and Aldi can say they have this amazing winery on their shelf as well, just like a wine shop around the corner. In the beginning, there was a lot of discussion in wine circles about whether a winery can do, should do that. Now people got used to it, I guess. I still think sometimes it isn't a great decision for a winery to do that. But, well, everyone has to decide what they want to do, and Leitz clearly decided that they want to work with Aldi. So let's taste whether the wine is good. So the wine is bottled under screw cap, which is a good idea for a wine like this. This is a fruit-driven white wine that is supposed to be consumed early. I mean, that's what I'm guessing, as Aldi doesn't necessarily have a lot of wines that merit aging. So having a screw cap just makes it easier. And it also reduces the risk by a lot that you'll have a corked bottle in your hand. I just looked at the label and the capsule, and I realized that this is a VDP Gutswein, and that means that all of the grapes for this wine need to come from vineyards owned by the winery. So this is all Leitz's own production. They're also talking about the soil types here on the label. The wine is from quartzite and löss soils, which are typical soils in Rheingau. And it's kind of nice that they put that on there, just in a few words, informing the consumer. If they want to know, then they can check on the label. Not bad. So this is light golden in color, and the nose is interesting. This smells of apricots, peaches. There's also a little bit of mintiness coming through. So it's quite a complex, a little broader aromatic profile for Riesling. I would have expected something tuned down, a little bit more appley in character. This is not atypical for Riesling, but it's just a different style of Riesling than what I would have expected. On the palate, this is also quite nice. I mean, there's quite a lot of acidity there, but also body and a little bit of structure. This is quite dry, but it also has a little bit of residual sugar, so there's some juiciness coming through as well. Not bad. This retails for $6.99, and I gotta say, I mean, for a VDP Gutswein from a well-known winery at this quality level, that's a great price. But is this a great Riesling? No, it's not. I mean, at that price point, you can't expect like something outstanding, but I think this is a really good wine, and I would rate it 84 points. The start was pretty solid, but I also have to say that the first two wines were the two most expensive wine, and price obviously factors in when it comes to quality. So let's see whether the next wine can play in the same league. The 2023 Acinaia Vernaccia di San Gimignano. Vernaccia di San Gimignano is one of the most well-known white wine styles coming out of Tuscany. It's from the village of San Gimignano, and, well, let's hope this is one of the good examples. Vernaccia di San Gimignano is also a DOCG, which is, in theory at least, the top of the quality pyramid in Italy, but that's always a little bit weird when it comes to Italian wine. I mean, this retails for €3.99, so at a very low level. Clearly, this can't be one of the best white wines coming out of Italy, but it is from this DOCG and therefore considered to be like extraordinary. Okay, yeah, I mean, this smells clean and bright. It has apple fruit character, a little bit of pineapple and banana fruit as well, which is not, in my opinion, super typical for Vernaccia di San Gimignano, but it's nice. I mean, it's not bad at all. Whoa. So on the palate, this is light, fresh. The acidity is actually moderate to low. and there's not much else there. So this is really a clean white wine, but it could be from many different places. This doesn't have a lot of character, not a clear identity. It feels just like a white wine made in stainless steel at low temperatures. Not great. But at that price point, it delivers, it does its job, and it's not offensive. So yeah, I will rate this wine 77 points. I think it is like an average kind of white wine. $3.99, I mean, what do you expect? Okay, this kind of scares me. This is a Tetra Pak, 1.5 liters, a Magnum, and it doesn't say anything but white wine Lieblich, which means an off-dry white wine, and it retails for €1.89. This feels like scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, I'm not expecting great things from this, but let's see. I mean, this is clearly not a very fancy way to open your drink for the evening. I mean, I'm just imagining myself sitting at the dinner table with this next to me. It's kind of a sad picture. But people must be buying this, and I don't want to offend anyone. I mean, if you're into this, then you do you. But yeah, this is just, I mean, this is like, this is the killer for wine culture. No. And in the glass, it looks like wine. I mean, it looks like a pale yellow white wine with a little bit of CO2. Oftentimes, young, fresh wines have a little bit of CO2 either added or it's still CO2 from the alcoholic fermentation. Oftentimes, this just adds freshness to the wine, so it's desired by the winemaker in order to liven up a wine that might otherwise be a little bit bland. Whoa. The nose certainly is interesting. So this smells of lemon juice, wax, and onions. Not the greatest combo, you know. It's not really something that I would otherwise put into my mouth at the same time, but that's just what I get from the glass. But it is clean. And on top of that, I've complained a lot about heavy bottles. So this is definitely not a heavy bottle. This is a pretty lightweight item that you can ship efficiently, as you can fit many of those into a box. But still, I mean, this is going too far, even for my taste. There definitely isn't any complexity here. This is just fresh fruit, and that's it. But it's not flawed. I mean, there's nothing wrong there. It just isn't very interesting. On the palate, this is quite juicy. I mean, it says Lieblich, which means off-dry, above off-dry, really. Lieblich doesn't really exist in the English language, but on our scale, we have dry, off-dry, Lieblich, and then sweet on top of that. But it doesn't taste that sweet. It actually has so much acidity, I think. The grapes are so acidic that the sweetness level is kind of balanced off and it doesn't taste very sweet on the palate. It only has 10.5% of alcohol, so you can drink a lot of it without getting drunk. And it says here on the Tetra Pak that this fruity, fresh white wine fits many different occasions. It's an ideal partner for a number of different dishes with its pleasant flavors and its special taste. What a description. I think someone who buys a Tetra Pak, nay, a Magnum Tetra Pak of white wine Lieblich, doesn't really care about food and wine matching. I mean, this is just about buying something to get drunk, right? But still, this is not a bad wine. I mean, it's not flawed, but it's also not a good wine. I'm going to rate this 71 points. I think this is okay, but don't buy this because, I mean, if you drink this, then don't drink. Just drink water or whatever. Because this is not a great product. It will not enhance your dinner experience with your significant other, because if you put this on the table, all the romance is out of the window. And if you just buy this to get drunk, then you should really reconsider your life choices. Whoa! The Tetra Pak actually, I mean, if you if you leave it on the palate long enough, it kind of really eats away at your tongue. So, but all right, next up we have another beauty. This is a Lambrusco di Modena DOC from Italy. It's a Frizzante and it's actually sweet. So it's a Dolce style. So let's taste it. I'm actually a fan of Lambrusco. I do like dry Lambruscos. There's some really good ones that are bottle fermented or that finish the fermentation in bottle. They can be really interesting, but there's also a lot of really bad Lambrusco. In Germany, if you buy a couple of pizzas at some pizza places, you might get one of these alongside with it, with a pizza. And yeah, that's kind of a good sign for how people look at Lambrusco in the world of wine. But like I said, it can be a great wine and it can be a great match with some dishes coming out of the Emilia-Romagna region where Lambrusco is from. There's quite a lot of meaty, hearty dishes coming out of that region. And Lambrusco, especially dry Lambrusco with its freshness, acidity, fruitiness, but also a slight meatiness, can be a delicious partner for that. So this is pale ruby in color. It's a frizzante, not a spumante, so it's low in CO2. There's not a lot of bubbles there. It's just slightly sparkling or slightly bubbly. And yeah, this smells like Lambrusco, but not the good stuff. So it smells of diluted cherry juice and vinegar. Yeah, that's kind of it. On the palate, it's kind of sweet and sour. I mean, it's not super sweet, but there's certainly some sugar there. The acidity is also quite elevated, and the CO2 will also break up the sweet sensation, so it feels less sweet because of the CO2. But still, it's really short. Yeah, no. I mean, this retails for €1.99, which sounds like a lot following that Magnum Tetra pack that I just tasted. But yeah, that's not a lot of money, obviously. So yeah, I don't like this. The good thing about Lambrusco is actually the really good stuff is not much more expensive. I mean, it will cost a few times that price, but still, I mean, you can find good bottles at around $10 to $20. So really great Lambruscos. So I think there's no real point in drinking this kind of stuff. Of course, I understand that many people have to consider their finances when they are buying wine, but I have the opinion that you should rather drink less and more high quality stuff. But obviously stay in your range, but don't buy something like this. I mean, just don't. I mean, I want to help you find great bargains. So yeah, but I can't recommend this. Sorry. I'm going to rate this 69 points. I think it's okay, but it's also, I mean, yeah, it's just there's not much there, and I wouldn't want to drink this. So next up, we have the 2023 Giacondi Nero d'Avola Merlot from Sicily, which is aged in Barriques. And of course, it received a 94-point score by Luca Maroni, which means nothing. I don't want to go into all that, but if you want to learn more about those ratings, the Luca Maroni scores, then check out my video. I'll link it up there. So this retails for €3.19 in Germany. And that kind of piqued my interest. I mean, obviously Sicilian wines are often fairly cheap, but this was aged in Barriques, and that is difficult to pull off at that price point. So this blend of Nero d'Avola and Merlot is not atypical. Nero d'Avola is a popular grape variety in Sicily, and Sicilians started adding international grape varieties to their autochthonous grape varieties in order to make blends that might appeal more to people outside of Italy, because they know Merlot, they might grab the bottle, and then they also taste some Nero d'Avola, might fall in love with that grape variety as well. It's just a door opener, basically. I'm not a great fan of that strategy. Overall, me personally, I really prefer tasting autochthonous grape varieties to get a different character from the wines that I'm tasting from different places. But I understand that if you're standing in the supermarket and you see a name that is familiar to you, it makes it easier to kind of just purchase that wine knowing what to expect when you taste the Merlot. So, Sicily, one of the most beautiful wine growing regions in the world, one of the most beautiful islands. I really love Sicily. Great food, great wine, great landscapes, a really interesting place. And of course, you always walk around in Sicily whistling that song from The Godfather. I don't want to get a copyright strike here, but you know what I mean. This is dark ruby in color. Well, it's ruby. It's not dark ruby. It's kind of medium ruby in color. It smells of blackberries, a little bit of black currants, red currants, cherries, but I don't really get any Barrique flavor here. Yeah, there is a little bit of vanilla, but actually this almost smells, I don't really think anyone would notice that. Yeah, I mean, it comes out a little bit more now. I don't know how they do that. I mean, a new Barrique can cost $1,000, and obviously they didn't use new Barriques here, I'm guessing at least. But still, I mean, even used Barriques are expensive. It's more difficult to handle them. They have to be kept somewhere in the winery. So all that adds to the cost. If you sell your wine at that price point, it becomes very difficult to kind of keep it in a Barrique for a meaningful amount of time. On the palate, this is kind of really bland, slightly bitter. Tannins are not great. The acidity is moderate. Oh, no. There's also this burned rubber flavor coming out now, which is not something I enjoy. I mean, who enjoys the flavor of burnt rubber, really? But yeah, this is just a really entry-level, really simple red wine. On the back label, it recommends serving this wine with pizza, pasta, rice, and beef. I don't know why they come up or why they put that there. I mean, rice, what does that mean? You're supposed to eat a bowl of rice paired with this? That makes no sense. Okay, I'm going to rate this 69 points. I think this is kind of a wine that the world doesn't need. It's not very enjoyable. It's not very interesting. So yeah. So next up, we have a wine from Spain, the Vina del Asador Gran Selección from Utiel Requena, which is a region that isn't really well known. And it's a blend of Beaucel and Tempranillo. It also has this little golden cage that I learned was added to bottles of wine to make sure that people didn't tamper with them. I don't think there's a big risk of anyone trying to counterfeit this wine here, but it obviously kind of represents Spain, or it's something people associate with Spain, so they still like to see this little golden cage around the bottles. What I really care about is what is inside this bottle. Again, not an expensive bottle of wine by any means. This retails for €2.69. So yeah. On the back label, it also says that this was actually aged in barriques. And in Spain, they can do that. I don't know how they do it. Oftentimes, I don't really understand Spanish wine prices either, but they somehow manage to age most of their reds in oak and still sell them at a very low price. So this is very light in color. It's kind of pale ruby in color. Definitely see-through, so you can see your fingers through the wine. It smells of potpourri, a little bit of kind of fruit tea, red currants, a little bit of nougat flavor coming through as well. On the palate, this is very harsh. I mean, the tannins aren't intense, but it's kind of just bitter, and yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, this is just this wine has no soul. Yeah, I'm going to rate this 67 points. I think there's something there. I mean, you can clearly call this wine, but it's not like wine. It doesn't have anything to say. It's just this is just fermented grape juice. That's it. Now we're going all the way to the land down under. This is Forest Hill, Australia, Shiraz Cabernet, Trocken Dry from the 2023 vintage. And it comes from southeastern Australia. They recommend serving this with meat and cheese. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that piece of information. There's just one type of meat and one type of cheese anyway, so that's all I need to know. So this is pale ruby in color, which is kind of atypical. I think most Australian wines, especially the more mass market ones, are quite dark. The red wines, at least, quite dark in color. This is fairly light in color, suggesting that it's probably, well, a little bit diluted, picked at higher yields in order to, well, you're not making a lot of money selling one of those bottles, so you have to sell a lot of bottles in order to make a decent income. I'm guessing this is produced in volumes of hundreds of thousands to millions of bottles, and I'm guessing they didn't really focus on producing concentrated fruit. They just focused on producing fruit and then just kind of converted that to wine. This sells for €2.49, which is again very low price, clearly, considering also that this was shipped from Australia to Europe. But yeah, it has like bright fruit character. It smells of blackberry conserve, so it's not very rich and concentrated, but it has this slightly stewy cooked fruit character. On the palate, this is kind of juicy, slightly sweet. I mean, probably it doesn't have a lot of sugar, but it feels a little bit off dry. Good thing is, nowadays you can often scan the QR code on the back label of a bottle, and then it gives you the nutritious value of the wine, so you can find out how much residual sugar it has. And this actually only has 0.3 grams per 100 milliliters of sugar, so the sweet sensation doesn't have anything to do with actual sugar being left in the wine. You can also find out what they've added to the wine. They've added sulfites, which is very typical. They added tartaric acid, and they added gum arabic. I think that's what it's called in English, which isn't like out of the normal. So actually a very short list of additives, considering that this is a very commercial wine from a country that's kind of known for doing lots of things in order to make sure that the wines are stable. But when it comes to the quality, I think this is not something I would want to drink because it's just boring, but it's okay. I'm going to rate this 73 points. I think this is an average red wine. It's quite polished. Not interesting at all, but it's palatable. So last but not least, we have this beauty. 3-liter bag-in-box of Vino Tinto de España. Bag-in-boxes can be an interesting alternative packaging method. I gotta be honest, I don't really drink wine out of bag-in-box, not because I don't like it, but most of the good quality stuff that I enjoy isn't available in bag-in-box. But obviously, I mean, they are quite handy, they're lightweight, so they have a better CO2 footprint. You can put them in the fridge and keep them cold. You can drink them over a longer period of time because they have this bag in that box that will preserve the wine for longer than if you have an open bottle. And yeah, if you're kind of going on a camping trip and want some wine, you can just put one of those into your trunk or whatever and take it. But like I said, I rarely do that, so I don't know whether that's how people drink wine from the bag-in-box. What I found quite astonishing here is that this is 3 liters of red wine and it retails for €5.29. So it's extremely cheap. 6 bottles of wine basically in one of those, and the price for all that is €5.29. This is a blend of Tempranillo and Cabernet Sauvignon from Spain. It doesn't say where exactly in Spain, but that's to be expected. I mean, I didn't expect it to give me a region at that price point. However, it gives you quite a lot of information on the back label or on the back of the box. It says practical and flexible. The wine is particularly easy to open and reseal without any tools. That's true. Already opened, the wine retains its unique fresh taste from the first to the last sip and can be enjoyed for at least 4 weeks. So you can keep this open for a month, which is nice. It goes on saying more environmentally friendly. Compared to the conventional packaging, the bag-in-box scores points with nature. Already in the production process, energy is saved, less water is needed, and lower CO2 emissions are caused, also due to the lighter own weight during transport. The material is also fully recyclable, which is a great thing. So let's taste this. So you have to kind of unzip this. Zack. Now you just squeeze that. Whoa. That's kind of like one of those aerators, you know, shooting the wine out in order to give it as much oxygen as possible. All right, this smells of cherries and licorice, a little balsamic, a little bit vinegary, but just a little. On the palate, this is kind of sweet and sour in taste. There's some sugar there, quite a lot of acidity, bit of tannic grip. I mean, this is definitely not a great wine, but it's also not the worst wine in the tasting. And I think it's clearly the cheapest wine in the tasting. I mean, if you run the numbers, this retails for €1.32 per bottle. So yeah, what do we expect at that price point? Not a lot. I mean, I still don't enjoy it though. So I'm going to rate this 70 points. I think it's an okay wine, but it's just not something you would want to seek out. This packaging though is interesting, and I wish I would see more like higher end wineries doing this. I mean, I think probably this is a difficult step because it kind of changes the perception of consumers of your product. But this is actually a great way to kind of give wine out to people in an environmentally friendly way and making sure that the wine is conserved well for a longer period of time. So 70 points, I think, is a fair score, and it gets the environmentally friendly thumbs up from me. This was another interesting tasting. I do enjoy these Aldi wine tastings because it's interesting to see what's going on in that segment of the market as well. I did enjoy these two wines the most, and it goes to show that if you spend a little more, you get a lot more wine. Those two were actually enjoyable, interesting wines that I might drink at a party, whereas the rest are just not wines that I would want to put into my body. However, there were some interesting wines here as well, interesting packaging methods, and it's really difficult, I think, to produce an expressive, interesting wine if you want to sell it at a retail price of €1.99. If you want to learn more about wine and want to learn how to avoid bad wine, then you should definitely check out cellarclass.com, my own wine education platform. We are launching very soon, so if you go to cellarclass.com right now, you're able to sign up for notifications on the launch date. And if you watch this a little bit further in the future, you can just check out Cellar Class and look at the courses that we have to offer. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, do you buy wine at Aldi? Which one is your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments. I hope I see you guys again very soon. Until then, stay thirsty and drink some decent wines. Okay? Cheers.